welcome to the Tessa Tubbs podcast. This podcast is for people refining what success means and choosing to live in alignment with who they actually are. That's the content for today's conversation. I'm very excited to have Ali Hemyari join us. Ali's a high-octane entrepreneur, author, TEDx speaker, SWAT operator and sniper, and an avid aviator who flies helicopters, airplanes, and jets. I'm already exhausted thinking about all the things you do, Ali. He has built and currently operates multiple companies across hundreds of employees, and his latest book, The Success Code, explores what it really takes to build wealth while leaving a meaningful legacy. Ali is also a family man, a man of faith, and a philanthropist, someone whose life spans extreme discipline, risk, responsibility, and performance across many domains. Ali, I'm really glad you're here.
Oh, it's an honor and a pleasure, and thank you for having me.
Absolutely. All right. Before we talk about business, leadership, or frameworks for success, I want to start underneath all of that. Ali, when you look back on your life and career, was there a defining moment or a season that, fundamentally changed how you understood success? This doesn't have to be a public milestone, but a point where something you relied on stopped working, or where success didn't fully answer the questions you thought it would.
I think after being a very successful serial entrepreneur, there comes to a point where you have a deep and profound understanding of business and what it takes to be successful in business. And that is relatable to anything that you want to go after, whether that's being the top skier or the top swimmer or, whatever your goals are. But you gain this deeper understanding. And for me, that was in my mid-30s, right before I had children, that what I learned was hard work beats talent when talent's not working hard. Mm. And secondly, this world is built on relationships more than anything else. Mm. Your resume doesn't matter. But if you have a good relationships, not knowing people, not being an acquaintance, but really good relationships, that will help drive and catapult you to a whole new level of success. And that's really with anything. Being here in Nashville, we're in the Music City. I see a lot of starving artists on Broadway playing in bands and singing for people until the wee hours in the morning, oftentimes never getting discovered, but have a lot of talent, are working hard. But the ones that get discovered more frequently than not are the ones that just have relationships. Mm-hmm. And that's really what it takes, part of what it takes to be successful.
Yeah, it's funny you say that. I was actually just at a speaking event last week, and one of the things we were talking about is how your network is your net worth. So exactly what you're saying, like those relationships matter and can mean the difference between the success you're pursuing or just, grinding it out and not feeling like you're getting anywhere. That's well said.
I think that is a big impact for people to understand that if you're an introvert, go learn to be an extrovert, because it's very, very, very important if you want to be successful, at least in the business world, right, to be as extroverted as you can. And that's a little rewiring of your brain. May take some time, but you can certainly do it.
Yeah. You talked about that moment in your 30s as a serial entrepreneur. I'm curious, what did you have to confront about who you actually were versus not who others saw or expected you to be? Like, what are those patterns or internal narratives you had to deal with, or assumptions about success you had to make, other than your, relationships and network matter? What else was important for you to glom onto in that season that was pivotal to the changes you made?
That's an interesting question. I'll tell you, since my early 20s, I started businesses in college, and I really didn't care about what other people thought. And I wasn't ever trying to compare myself to anybody else. The battle was within myself of how far can I go and how competitive can I be with my own self. It wasn't about beating the Joneses or having something greater than them. It was really about listening to that voice in your head, which I think is the Holy Spirit, saying, keep pushing, and keep pushing. And that's really what did it for me. So what you find is with a lot of outliers that are successful in any venture that they do is they kind of beat to their own drum.
Right.
And if you think about some of the most wealthy people like Jeff Bezos or Elon Musk, I think that being around people like that, they might be a little bit socially awkward,
Hmm.
but they're just so focused on beating to their own drum that they don't really care. They have a very high signal to noise ratio.
That's awesome.
So being able to tune out that noise and focus on the signal, I have the same thing. I don't really listen to what everybody else is thinking. And now, normally in business, you have adversity. That's part of it. You have competitors out there. Obviously, you have clients, employees, former employees. But again, locking in on that signal and tuning out the noise is probably the most important part of this.
So it's interesting because I completely agree. Like being able to tap into that inner voice and what's charting you and leading you. Going back to your earlier comment, what advice do you have for people when they are the outlier? That voice is telling them to go in a different direction. They want to build those the network. The network is telling them to go in a different direction. How did you navigate that tension?
Go find 5 more people
That's
that
awesome.
are way more successful than you are and go hang with those people. Those people will drive you to levels that you've never even considered in
Mm,
leadership, in
right,
management, in business, in hunting. They're hungry all the time.
right.
That's who you need to surround yourself with.
I
And
love that.
so if you look around your friends and you see that, hey, they're doing well, but they don't really have the same ambition than you do,
Mhm.
then you have to beat to your own drum and go a different direction. And that's okay. Go make new friends. But
I
finding
love that.
really good mentors that are far more successful in whatever field it is that you're in is probably the most vital advice I could give to somebody.
So you talked about how which is I think is a unique aspect to you, which is a wonderful thing to have, where you weren't trying to keep up with the Joneses, you weren't overly concerned about what other people had to say about you, but you talked about like your biggest barrier was just where you thought you could take yourself. And even as you tapped into that voice inside, the Holy Spirit that you're giving attribution to, what helped you what helped you raise the bar or lift the ceiling? How did you burst through that internal voice?
I think experience is a big part of that.
Okay.
And being able to live through challenges that other people may find risky or they wouldn't take it on, that's a big part of it. When you think about top producers in general, though, you think about people that take action immediately. They don't
Mhm,
procrastinate, they don't delay, they take action now. You also think about top producers in investing into their own mind and their vocation.
mhm,
So, being a professional in your field means knowing everything about whatever it is you're selling. If you're selling a vehicle, for example, knowing every little bit of that vehicle that you're selling, or if you're at a car dealership, all the vehicles that you're selling goes a long way. And that's the part where I don't think people really understand that investment into their own mind and vocation. So when I was in college, I ran an advertising company. I attended so many advertising seminars and conferences. Oftentimes the ones that you have to pay, and sometimes that were free, but you had to buy a book or some sort of consulting afterwards. We've all been through that kind of stuff. The And then as you grow, so my background is I run an ultra high end dog training facility, and learning everything about dogs. So investing into my own mind and vocation by attending various seminars, traveling the world, training with the best trainers, taking specialized courses. I ended up becoming a law enforcement officer to help the credibility of my business.
mm,
So becoming a police officer, going through that type of training, and then afterwards the specialized training. Like, well, if I want to train a SWAT dog, I need to go through SWAT canine school, which is what I did before I even became a SWAT operator.
hmm,
And so then I had a better understanding of what the law enforcement officers were going through. So anything that you can do to invest back in yourself uh, is important. If you're terrible at speaking, go join Toastmasters.
Right.
Things like that that I think is really betting on yourself is going to get you a lot farther than hoping somebody in your company takes notice of you and hoping that there's a hand reached down to you and pulling you up just because you're doing the right thing.
I love that. I love the challenge of, stop waiting for permission or validation or external confirmation, but really shifting into what's your own responsibility and how you've leaned into that. I'm curious, as you talk about how that like self-ownership showed up in your work, how has that also translated into relationships or faith or these days, perhaps how you may be thinking about legacy?
Well, I think that I've been very fortunate and blessed. There have been numerous times where God or my guardian angel has been sitting on my shoulder, whether that was in law enforcement or flying helicopters or airplanes, or I could just tell you so many stories about that. I think one thing that people need to understand, especially us in America, is that everything in America seems to be instant gratification. So we can go to the grocery store, open the trunk, and some fairy comes and deposits groceries. Or worse off, you have companies like Instacart or Ship that are delivering groceries directly to your door.
Right.
Uber Eats and these other apps that are delivering food to you. And I'm not saying that those aren't bad things, but that is a type of conditioning.
Mm,
It falls under the classical conditioning that uh, Pavlov had created. And so we get in this mindset, especially those younger people that are looking at social media, that things are just easy and they happen fast. The discovery of somebody whose video went viral, and I'm not saying that there aren't some anomalies, but most of those viral videos took 14 years of finding creative content, editing those videos at 8 to 10 hours a day before one finally went viral. And so
right.
the
We got
thing to
burned
get over,
out. Right.
that's right. The thing to get over in America is stop trading short term gain for long term pain. Stop,
Mm,
stop that. Go more for, okay, let me do short term pain for long term gain. Did I say that right?
hmm
Okay, yeah. So
Short-term pain for long-term. Yeah.
that's right. Things aren't easy. It takes time. It takes time to build a skill set. It takes time to build relationships. Go be intentional about that. Uh, when your friends want to go out and hit the bars 3 or 4 days a week, stay at home and focus on yourself and improving yourself. Go hit the gym. Go be active. Go uh, teach courses. Go take courses.
hmm
All those kind of things to benefit yourself and invest into you, to what you need to do to make yourself the outlier. I see far too many resumes of employee applications of where, well, I went to college, now I'm looking for a job. It's like, well, what else did you do in college? Did you play
Right.
a sport? Were you in the band? Did you do any philanthropy? Did you build houses for Habitat for Humanity or work for Make-A-Wish? Did you do anything that makes you exceptionally different
Mm,
than the other clone whose application is sitting in front of me?
right.
Those are the things to think about. And I think that carries through in life too as adults.
Right.
What are you doing to be extraordinary?
I love the challenge to invest in self, the reality setting, right? Of you got to grind it out. Things don't happen overnight. And as you're describing, like, what are you doing to differentiate yourself? Now, with all of that sort of pursuit of excellence and aiming for what success means to you, I'm curious, how do what values or boundaries guide you in this season of life? How do you find balance or harmony or integration in all of this?
So every morning I'm up really early. I go straight to the gym. So it balances me out physically and mentally right off the bat.
hmm
So if I can eat my frog in the morning, go to the gym, get the hard stuff out of the way, I now have lowered
mm
my cortisol levels to be able to take on the stress from work. I can put on my war makeup, I can grab my shield and my axe, and I'm ready to go to war, whether it's with competitors, whether it's with just the market in general, but however way I need to defeat fires that happen daily, I'm prepared for.
Mm, mm,
Secondly, spending time with family is very important. So I have a hard stop at 2 o'clock every day. Now, the way I
mm.
get there is I'm up at 3:30 in the morning. It's an
Wow,
hour where
there you
most
go.
people are still asleep, but I'm up really early in the morning. I do the crazy things like cold plunges. My wife thinks I'm a nut for it. You know, all of those things help balance it. And then, of course, the spiritual part as well, where you can't do this on your own. You need God in your life. There is
Mm,
no more of an arrogant person to think that they have built success, whether it's wealth or attributed to any other goals that they have fought for, that was done on their own.
mm,
And then once you get to that point where you've been successful in whatever those goals are, it's also your obligation to give back and pay it forward.
mm.
And I think that that is an important one that I leave for my children in my legacy where they're active in it. So, for example, Tess, I host a big fundraiser for Make a Wish every year. I do it in coordination with the Ferrari of Nashville dealership.
Right.
Uh, we often invite close to about 40 to 50 couples in, and we raise an extraordinary amount of money every single year.
Mm,
And every year I have my son come and speak at that event in front of all these people.
mm,
And so from a young age, two things happen. He sees that mom and dad are out there raising money for Make a Wish, so children with life threatening illnesses. And then two, he is now standing in front of a crowd of people uncomfortably having to
mm.
speak in front of them. So by the time he's 16 or 17, it's second nature for him.
Right.
It's old hat at that point. Right. And so that's a part of enveloping the family into everything that you need to do to continue that legacy of success and
Right.
teaching them, hey, yeah, you got to practice these lines. You're going to be in front of a lot of people.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I love the role modeling while at the same time creating platforms that, and I love the fact that you said that, it's not without nervousness, but he's still continuing to show up and execute on there. That's fantastic.
Yeah, I'm very, very proud of them.
That's
And
awesome.
these are things that sometimes people often forget about, right? We get stuck in academia sometimes with children at younger ages, and hey, you really need to focus on your books. And I'm not saying that that's not important,
Right.
but these are some other gifts and skills that we need to instill. He and I worked on taking apart something in one of our vehicles last week together, and he's only 8, by the way. And so, again, more of that and less of the video game and TV time.
Given the fact that you're a serial entrepreneur, you're at this stage in life, greater clarity, greater conviction, greater confidence, giving back, finding the balance, role modeling for your child, for your family, your community, living out your faith. I'm curious, now that you've reached this stage of success, what does this level of success require of you now that it didn't earlier?
So there is some difficulty in that because you are a role model,
Mhm.
not just to your family, but the community as well. But where I could tell you I live daily is I am always grateful, but I am never satisfied.
Hmm.
And that one is a tough one to get unless you've kind of lived through those shoes that you have this relentless pursuit of being the best, or at least striving to be the best in whatever it is that you want to do. And that is where my brain is every day. It's hard to turn off. I don't know if it's just at some point you just become fused that way, but it is very difficult to turn off. Even if it's something as silly as blowing the leaves off of the driveway. My yard has the less leaves on, or least leaves than any other driveway in this neighborhood. And my next door neighbor thinks I'm funny about it, but it's that obsessiveness
Mm.
of being the best, and that competitiveness is what really creates the outlier.
I love that. And I love the distinction of what does it mean to not just be a role model for your family, but a role model for your community and just the relentlessness, the constant pursuit. So There are so many people who are going to be listening to this talk and who are in just different stages of success and sorting life out for themselves. What would you say is the most important thing for them to discover for themselves, especially especially for those chasing quick wins without pausing to consider the long view?
I don't think that there is such thing as a quick win. A quick win nowadays could be married to, well, I made a lot of money on Bitcoin on accident or something like that. But even in that market, there can be a lot of volatility day to day as well.
Hmm.
And so I don't know if there is such thing as a quick win. And I think that the more comfortable you are being uncomfortable in life, the
Hmm.
more successful you're going to be.
Yeah.
Top or high achievers really think it's a whatever it takes mentality. It's not a, okay, well, I can just give it this effort and I hope I'm there. It's just this whatever it takes to get
Right.
done. And they need to get comfortable with that. Let's take, for example, the comfortable with being uncomfortable mentality.
Hmm.
If you are a runner and you want to run a marathon, of how often you have to practice that at minimum daily, right?
Hmm.
In the cold, in the heat, in the rain, blisters on your feet, your legs are sore, and yet you still have to put on those shoes and get out there and practice.
Right.
You just got to get comfortable being uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And again, we live in a society right now where people are just okay with being comfortable. And I don't think that that was necessarily that COVID was the catalyst to that. I think we were there well before COVID,
Hmm.
but certainly COVID has exaggerated that as well. And so, you know, keep your eye on the prize. And when you think about passion, for example, Tessa, what does that word mean to you?
To me personally,
Mhm.
so when I think about passion, it's the thing that drives me. I don't even have to think about it. It's almost like breath, right? It's the thing that I'm willing to pursue relentlessly. And I'm not going to give up on. It's also the thing that when I'm in a season when I'm tired and I'm fatigued and I swear I'm done pursuing and chasing and I'm not going to do it anymore and I put it to the side. And then when I rest and recover and catch my breath is the first thing I go back to pick back up. That to me is what passion's about.
So I was on a podcast a couple of years ago with a gentleman named Jason Duncan, the real Jason Duncan.
Mm-hmm.
And Jason defines passion or defines the etymology of passion going all the way back to the passion of the Christ.
Mm-hmm.
And so Jason says that with passion, there's suffering. And so if you're not suffering, and I agree with him 100%, if you're not suffering through to get to the end goal, like the marathon runner we were just discussing,
Mm-hmm.
right? He he or she puts on their shoes, they go run no matter what the atmospheric or environmental conditions are, and they push and they push and they push. And that's passion, passion for that running, passion for that race. That even though their feet hurt and they have blisters and they're tired and their legs are burning and their back hurts and they're ready to give up, the passion drives them. And so find that passion, whatever it may be. It could be playing piano or guitar. It could be singing. It could be, you know, downhill skiing, whatever that passion is, and pour your heart and soul into it. Everybody has a gift. God's given everybody a gift. Pour your heart and soul into that gift.
You mentioned earlier about how successful people will do whatever it takes. What's the boundary when doing whatever it takes crosses a line? How do you stay on the right side of that?
I think the boundary is your ethics and integrity.
Hmm.
I think as long as you're doing whatever it takes within that has integrity behind it, you're fine. You got to be careful as you develop families to be able to nurture your family and nurture your business as well at the same time without impeding on your family.
Mm.
And so that still goes back to the integrity. part of it as well. It's you can become a slave to your own business,
Yeah.
and forget about the family because you're nurturing your business so much. But then the whole reason you're working is to support your family.
Right.
So, one of the comments I make in my first book, in Discipline, is that younger people have a definite advantage
Mm.
when they are still single and they don't have children, that they can take risks versus older people like me at this age where I have children and I'm married. Because when you're single, you can take on all the risk you want. You can travel with your corporate company wherever they want to send you. You can work 15 hours a day on your business like I used to, 15, 18 hours a day, 7 days a week. You can pour your heart into that. But the moment that you have a dependent, whether that is a spouse or your children, that's when things change a little bit. And by that time, you really got to pay attention to being a good husband and a good father.
Yeah.
And, you still have to support your family, but the insatiable hunger of potentially chasing money is going to do everybody harm.
Yeah, that's well said. And these days, for many people, in addition to a partner or children, it's caregiving duties, right? So, as more and more responsibilities sit on your shoulder, that risk tolerance or risk ratio does need to shift, right, in order to keep the portfolio balanced, for sure.
Yeah. So for the younger people, get out and grind now. Grind now so you don't have to do it later.
Yeah.
So you can have hard stops at 2 o'clock like I do. But I
That's
had to put in that work a long time ago prior to having kids to be able to have those hard stops at 2.
So that's great advice for the person who is single and doesn't have a lot of dependents. What about the person who has them and still looking to pursue? What advice do you give for them?
So wake up early like me. You got to give your family the time that they're due. So I'm up super early. I remember I was studying for my instrument flight rating, and I was waking up at 2:30 in the morning to go fly uh, before the workday even started, just so I could get home and make sure that my kids got to jujitsu.
Hmm.
And so I wanted that rating so bad. It definitely helps with aviation. I'm a partner in an aviation company. Like that was something I had to have, and it was both work and for a milestone I needed to accomplish.
Hmm.
But what did it take? I couldn't sacrifice that time away from family, so I sacrificed my own sleep to be able to do that.
Hmm.
And it was a season of grinding. You
Right.
remember when you and I did the TEDx?
Yes.
That TEDx was at the same time that I was launching this book
Oh, wow.
and preparing for the TEDx, running a business. We had our annual event at Ferrari where, we had to put everything together, including, food and the color of the chargers on the table, for example, all in like a 3 to 4 week period
Yep.
of getting all this stuff done. And it's a whatever it takes mentality. Most
Mm.
people would have given up or spaced things out. But, the one that understands it's a whatever it takes mentality would get it done no matter what.
Absolutely. And so the message here, whether you're young and unencumbered or you're attached and limited, you got to grind it out. The way is there's no reaping without sowing at the end of the day. So
I think that at least that's my perspective.
before we close, I want to make some space for you to share where people can learn more about your work, your book, your companies, or anything you're building in this season. How can they stay connected with you, Ali?
Sure. You could go to alihemyari.com and you can learn all about what we do, the different businesses we have. You can go on anywhere that sells books, Barnes and Noble, Amazon, any kind of bookseller. You can buy the newest release of the Success Code, co-authored by Honore Corder, or my first book called Discipline, and really understand what it takes and how to get there.
Awesome. Ali, thank you for your honesty and for the way you're expanding how we think about success, responsibility, and legacy. And I want to invite everyone who's listening, thank you for spending the time with us. If this conversation resonated, I invite you to follow the podcast and join us for the next episode where we'll continue exploring what it looks like to lead yourself well and build a life that actually holds up over time. Thank you.